Hi, I wanted to welcome everybody today. I know we may be broadcasting live but we're recording this for future use on Facebook and other media for District 6. But enjoy the information if you're watching live. I wanted to talk to my district a little bit. Rather than having a town hall meeting in person this month, we are basically doing some updates, some video recorded updates on the two topics that we would have done at the town hall meeting. One is the McCullough Park, and the other is having the firefighters come in and talk some fire safety moving into the winter months. So I have invited Anna Merrick in today. We have a groundbreaking in our very near future for our McCullough Park. The funds for McCullough Park was acquired. I fought for them in the Vision Project, and it was passed by the voters back when we passed Vision in the 2015 year. So we have got the funding through. We've gone through the community engagement process. We have been through the design phase and out to bid, and we're getting ready to break ground. But I was going to let Anna tell us a little bit about some of the amenities we're getting there and recap those, and then have some additional discussion about park stuff.
Absolutely. This is kind of a fun format, and just so if anybody is out there watching, or when you broadcast, I want to make sure everybody knows that we are vaccinated and socially distanced. Yes. So for this purpose, we have taken off our masks, but we're good followers of the rules in City Hall.
Absolutely.
So since I'm always nagging my staff, I want to make sure they know that we're following the rules too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're so excited about this. And as you said, you and I were on the council together when Vision was passed, and this was, I think, the number one thing that you advocated for. It was the only park project that made the Vision package because of your advocacy. And it's the first investment in East Tulsa parks in many decades. I think, I mean, we've done improvements, but major investment, a real park overhaul like this since Hicks Center was built many decades ago.
Yeah,
so
it was very important for me to have a water feature in that, because we did not have anything. Our closest water feature at a park was a McCullough, I believe, and they have a pool. But east of that, there was no other water feature in any of our East Tulsa area.
Right. It's kind of crazy because we have the most young population in East Tulsa, the most growth, obviously, in East Tulsa. And yet, you're exactly right. The farthest east water feature, whether pool, splash pad, anything like that, was McCullough. To date, is still McCullough.
Yeah.
But this will be adding, as you can see, a lot of elements. And the water playground will be a centerpiece here. What I think's been really fun, as you mentioned, we had a steering committee and a lot of different people involved, because there's a lot of collaborative partners in that part of town. And so there's kind of an international theme. It's going to be subtle because you didn't want to be kind of with heavy-handed sort of cliched imagery, but I think, really trying to reflect the diverse and vibrant culture in East Tulsa. And we really see this park being a place where that community is going to come together. It won't just the neighborhood's going to love it. It's going to really be a great feature for the people who live right around there. But I think you'll see people coming from a whiles away. And as you can see, there'll be this, the way this is designed, and so it's up on the screen. That water playground in the middle won't have as many features as you see in some other ones, and that was a deliberate choice because we also want that whole space when the water playground isn't on to be able to function as a big gathering space. You've got these pavilions. This is those who know me and have heard me talk about this know I am very reluctant to build bathrooms in general because they're high cost, they're high maintenance factors. There's other things, but we know this is a destination park. People are going to come there and spend hours. So this will be one of the first new bathroom facilities we've been building in a long time. You can see there'll be playground. I think up in the right, those bright colors over in the kind of right side of this, there'll be a multi-sports court over there. That will have court soccer and basketball, adding those amenities. We'll retain the baseball backboards so that people can still come use that. They're primarily used for practice and, kids just going out there and throwing and families and stuff, but we want that experience. There'll be a trail through part of this, so lots of fun features. And then the real highlight here that's going to be unique, we don't have in any other park in Tulsa. In fact, it's going to be, for the region as a whole, the pump track.
Yeah.
So the BMX pump, which you can see part of back in and that visually, that's not as like fun and colorful as some of the
Yeah.
other things. It's going to be
Yeah,
once
yeah,
you
yeah.
get people on that. So
Yeah.
your kids
Yes.
is a big biker. So
Well, and
how-
that was a big part of that discussion too, with BMX choosing to come to Tulsa as this package was being brought forward, and then of course the funding in it to help with that move. That was a piece that I felt was important to encourage those kids to not only have that place to go and practice and enjoy that sport, but potentially have a place where they could feed into that sport, because that is a international sport. It goes on. We have Olympians that do BMX racing too. So starting them young and starting that ability to participate in biking as a sport, we know that they keep that their entire life most of the time. So
Right. And I mean, it's like anything. You want, playgrounds or whatever. We want people to go out and have fun here, but really the biggest goal is you want people to get out and be active.
Absolutely.
And I think what we'll see here is you'll see, it's been funny to me. I've looked now when I've been in other communities, and I'll see if they have a pump track or something like that. And you have clearly novice bikers who are not into it competitively.
Yeah.
You have kids who like to just run this and run up and down the hills and things like that. So I think
you have scooters, you have all kinds of different things.
it'll just encourage a lot of different, not just kids probably either. I mean, Phil Lakin will probably be out there.
Yeah.
But there's your more adventurous adults who even are. It's just kind of a fun way to get somebody out and try something new and be active. So I think it'll be for those who are a little bit more serious can take advantage, but you don't have to be. I mean, if you want to just get out there and run up and down these hills, you can do that as well. So. And we have been told, I'm sure this changes all the time as people are constructing, but this, at least in the design phase, will be one of the, and don't ask me how many feet, because I don't remember, but it's going, they said the longest, at this stage, track in the region.
They said it's bigger than the one at Gathering Place, so we're kind of excited about this. It's going to be
cool. I mean, somebody may build something, in the meantime, but it's not. This isn't just some little 20-foot thing. Do it and get over. I mean, this is going to be something. We expect people. Like I said, we'll come to this park, we'll hang out, we'll picnic, we'll the kids may be playing on the court soccer or on the bike. It's also, as you know, right next to the library.
Yes. That was important. I wanted it. I wanted it there on purpose. I mean, first of all, it was a park area that we had available that had the space to do this. But secondly, it was creating a very nice hub between the library and the park and the school, and it just added to that community so well.
Well, and so one of the things that allowed us to do is we were able to put in less parking than we might normally at a park like this, which meant we get to keep more green space because you've got a church nearby you've got the library, you've got various partners that all understand and are happy to work and share parking space. They don't all peak at the same times. So, we will be adding some parking, obviously, as part of this, and there's street parking and things. But, you hate when you have to go into a park that isn't huge and take up a big chunk of the space for parking.
Yeah, it was a great community effort. I mean, because they were part of that discussion with that community involvement. And absolutely. So it was really, really a unique process in that it incorporated all of the elements that were already there.
And one of the things we've talked about, when we get closer to, and as you know, construction takes always longer than we expect. So it'll be a multi-year project before we're completely done. But the library has told us they would like to, and so we plan to work with them so that you can do things like come over there and check out, use your library card, check out a soccer ball, or equipment, which I think is a really fun way again to just really bring the engage that community in a way that there may be kids who come to the park who wouldn't normally go to the library, who will maybe go check out a book, or somebody who's in the library who's like, oh, hey, I could go next door and play. So we'll hopefully get that synergy.
Well, and there are things that we could add too. We could add croquet to check out that they could use. We could do maybe a tetherball pole. There's one thing in this that is not there that I had wanted, and we've had that discussion already. There are not swings. I am hoping in the future that we can fund some swings, maybe over in this area where we've got some space that kind of protects it and keeps others from kind of walking through that path. And I'm thinking about reaching out to some community partners to see if we can't get those sponsored.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
So, because that's one of the things that I hear a lot too is oftentimes when we've gone through and redone playgrounds that we're losing our slides, we're losing our swings, we're losing the cool things that, we all grew up on and our kids still love, and we're losing those things. So fortunately, I do see a slide in here. We do have some slides in that playground, and I'm going to be actively working to make sure that we get some swings as well, because those are cool. Those are great things that the kids really enjoy, and I would love to see a merry-go-round, but we do away with those too.
I know. We took away everything. Like,
I know, all the
any
cool,
risk.
I know. God forbid if we might get hurt.
When my son in elementary school went to France on foreign exchange, and he came back, and it was striking to him the difference on, our building code. Not that I'm against building codes and all this, but we basically, we've ruled fun and risk out of everything. So he's like, there they have stairs that are kind of crazy and little, and the kids there go outside when it's cold and play at recess, and so it's a different mindset. I mean, we're dealing with obviously we want things to be safe and we follow all the rules, but I think we are looking at how can you give more of those kinds of opportunities, because kids want a little bit of that. They like that,
and they
the way your
need
stomach,
that. They need that stretch. They need, I mean, there's nothing wrong with adrenaline in the right measures, I mean, so. and you're right. It's part of that growth process, at testing those boundaries and doing things that, and fortunately, when they're that young, most of them are rubber anyway. I mean, they're not like us, who get hurt and take months to heal.
So that's one really, I think, good feature of the pump track, is it'll give the kids that feeling like, I'm racing, I'm having an adventure here. So it's good. Yeah, it's going to be fun. And as you can see, I mean, we're trying to be intentional about more color. And making, I want especially a park like this where it's a signature park, to feel that way, to not just feel like you have the same playground or the same features that you have elsewhere, that this community is going to feel like they have something special. So it's going to be fun. Very, very cool.
And I know you mentioned we're going to have a bathroom there that will be secured most of the time. It's going to be locked and taken care of by security, correct? For our security. And I'm assuming if you want to reserve one of the shelters, that would go through the same park process. And we were working on improving that with our website and making that easier to facilitate that. And I know that we've done a lot, too, to help with the bilingual nature of our websites, to allow for in any of those cultures to be able to access that and reserve those. And I know, I mean, we have been doing some playground and replacement and upgrading in some of the other parks. And I know that you and I have taken some deliberate looks at some of those parks, like Norberg and things, which... That one distresses me. It's just a very small little thing, and it's so old. It's definitely in need of some upgrades. So we're looking forward to eventually working on that one, and working on some of the tennis courts and things like that are not currently being utilized or just in need of an upgrade, because we've talked about transitioning some of those to either pickleball courts or, better yet, basketball courts, half courts with goals. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so and hopefully we'll be in the next couple of weeks, I'll be coming back to the council with that plan, so you guys could take a look at that. As you know, in Improve Our Tulsa, a different funding package, we have money that's becoming available this year, starting to become available for sports courts. We defined that pretty broadly because we knew that they wouldn't just be, some current tennis courts maybe transitioned into something else. And unfortunately, there aren't a ton in East Tulsa to start with, in your district, in East Tulsa in general. But what we tried to do is kind of look there and say, okay, is this an area, what we find in those with kids, young families, by far basketball is the most popular. It's one kid can go play basketball, or two kids can go down there and play basketball. It's a pretty easy access, low threshold compared to some other sports. And I mean, compared to tennis, for example. So we don't want to take tennis away, of course. We still have tennis fans, but we've got a lot of courts that haven't been playable for tennis. They're in such poor condition. So we're looking at all of them. And what we're trying to do is say, how do we make sure that every part of town is best we can with the facilities we have, has access to tennis, to add at least one pickleball court in each part of town, as you know, growing sport. initially was mostly seniors who were kind of interested. I wouldn't say seniors, but kind of older adults. A lot of times it was people who'd played tennis, for a long time and maybe started having knee problems. So pickleball has a lot of the same elements as tennis, but not quite as hard on your joints and stuff. But now pickleball is, it's all ages are playing it together. It's a very community sport more than, I'd say tennis. Typically, a couple people don't go play pickleball. Groups go play pickleball, and they rotate in and out and stuff. So, so we want to make sure everybody has access to that all over the community wherever they are. So we'll be adding some. We'll be converting some. We're also, this isn't in your district. Well, it isn't now. It may be after. Who knows. But Hicks Park, which is our farthest rec center, has a large complex there, and so we're going to look there at, because we have 5 courts, I think it is. We're probably going to convert one of those to court soccer. The court soccer conversions have been very popular in parts of town, and so we know that that there's a lot of
soccer players and
a lot of soccer players, and it's a fun thing in evenings or when the fields are a little bit wet or whatever. It allows people to get out and just kind of do a pickup game and have fun. So. But I think in your district, what you'll see mostly are, refurbishing some and making them playable for tennis, and then, but focusing on probably adding where we can some basketball, because you have almost no basketball courts. It was,
I know.
Looking through that, it's kind of tough. And, sometimes one of the things we try to look at is when you have a school that might have some of those amenities, we don't want to replicate them if they're, if the public can access, like in my neighborhood, I'm close to Memorial Junior High and, Sauk Elementary, and there are some amenities there that the neighborhood can use. So, we don't want to replicate those, but trying to give as much as we can to all parts of town. So, lots going on, and I'd like to see. Since you have an area that has a lot of growth, obviously there's only a couple parts of town. We do really well nationally when you look at like total acreage of parks and a lot of just the numbers of amenities, but they're not always distributed in a way that really gives everybody equitable access. So East and Southeast Tulsa are the sort of least served by just numbers of facilities, and so we'll be and amenities in those facilities, things like basketball courts, and so that'll continue to be a focus, I think, over coming years. Is like you say, going back to a Norberg or wherever, where can we add some elements when we get some new construction money to make sure that everybody has access to things. Trails was one that we've seen huge growth and interest, and the community has really told us in all parts of town they want access. So there will be a what we call loop trails, but a neighborhood walking trail within that park, so folks who live there can. What I did a lot when my kids were younger, and I think you'll see a lot, is a mom or dad will come over here while the kids riding their bike on the pump track. The mom or dad will walk some laps and get some energy, feel like they can kind of keep an eye on their kid. But,
I've done that too.
So that's it's one of we've discovered it's one of the best ways to get families to come out and be active is adding those loop trails where there are also amenities for the kids. So we'll be looking for opportunities. You have a lot in your district. There are, because you've had a lot of floodplain issues, that we had with Mingo Creek and others.
Some of the retention areas that have.
Yeah, so where we can maybe partner, and there are, add trails if there aren't trails to help create those walking opportunities. So.
Yeah. There's another thing that we've also talked about, and I know that we're beginning to survey and see locate a good place for a dog park in East Tulsa as well. We have obviously Biscuit Acres out south, and we have
Joe Station,
and in Northwest Tulsa. So once again, East Tulsa and that southeast area is lacking. So, and I've got some sizable areas out there that we're looking at. That we're going to move forward on that too in the near future.
I think that's exciting. Something else I've really been I've opened my eyes to a little bit more is I think in the past you mentioned the 2 bigger dog parks, and we've felt like we needed to do these sort of big destination dog parks. But I have seen a lot
just
of communities.
Smaller neighbor ones.
Exactly. And so we've done one at Gunboat Park now, which is just very small. And not that, you could bring your dog there, I could bring my dog there, but it's intended for folks in that neighborhood. Typically, you're going to walk over there. That's a neighborhood that doesn't have a lot of it's like apartment living and things like that in near downtown. So people who don't always have access to a place where their dog can run around a little bit, they don't have a backyard. And I've seen you can do that a lot more affordably and probably a lot more functionally for a lot of people. And just, it's a place where people can socialize as well as the dogs, but let your dogs get out there and play together. So I think we might sort of expand the opportunities for that and identify parks where that neighborhood thinks that, because you can do it with a lot, it doesn't have to have water and sewer and all of these amenities. It may just be, you take your dog for a walk, you go in there and let your dog have 15 minutes running around chasing a tennis ball, get a little of that excess energy out, and then take them back home, but really intended to serve that neighborhood more than, Biscuit Acres, gets people from all across the city driving there to use it, and which is great, and we love that. I use that park all the time, but I think we can add more of those smaller ones that will. It's been interesting, as you know, you've been involved in the process where we've been in this master plan, a very extensive over the past year community engagement process in parks and master plan process. And another thing that we really heard from people is they want more, particularly in areas outside of Midtown where a lot of services are concentrated, a lot of amenities are concentrated. It's like people who live in Far East Tulsa don't want to have to drive to Midtown to enjoy everything. So people really want programs and amenities in their neighborhood. So really how, looking at what can we do like that? Can we do more neighborhood amenities that really serve smaller communities? Can we, we'll be looking at over this next year what we can do in terms of programming to get more programming out in parks where there aren't rec centers. I can't talk about it. I just remembered we can't talk about it. We got a grant to do something cool that I'm not supposed to talk about yet, because that will allow us to bring some amenities out to different parts of town that don't have fun stuff. So good thing I remembered. I can't talk about it yet, but that'll be fun. We'll be announcing that sometime in the next month or so.
Cool.
So a lot of real focus on that. Like, how do we bring things to people instead of expecting them to always come to us? So
yeah, that's nice. I knew that we saw a request for that when we were doing this park, and although it wasn't a good option for this park, we have parks like Norberg and things like that it would be. I saw a pretty good request for Frisbee golf. Once again, another amenity that we don't have, I think, east of probably McCullough again. So that's one that we could probably look at adding, and probably won't be as expensive to add as some of the other elements.
True. We do have, and I actually am not sure, you bringing that up, it reminds me, I haven't heard anything about it in a little while. We have a disc golf group that has a proposal, and we've been moving forward on it. But like I said, like a lot of things, I think a lot of things got kind of waylaid over the past year and a half. And so I need to check into it. But building out on Carl Smith.
Okay.
Because you got all that land out there.
Oh, absolutely.
And
that was another area we kind of looked at, maybe a playground too, out in between the main park and the road, so that we've got people that maybe want to utilize that while, their team's on a break or in between games or something like that.
It's kind of interesting because you do have space out there. It's not really close to it's not close to residential areas, but again,
that's changing.
Oh, good.
We have a huge explosion of additional residences that are going to be coming up between down 31st, between about 177th and 193rd.
That'll be great.
Got about 7 projects that are lining up.
That's there's a lot of space out there. So we've talked about different ways that how can you better use some of that space, so it's not just for softball, and as you and I have talked before about the potential maybe doing some events out at that space, because it's a good festival space, and potentially it hasn't ever been used that way, but I think that's potential. It's not sexy at all. In fact, it's the least sexy thing that we're going to be spending money, but I think the single most expensive thing on the infrastructure list that'll be, out of Improve Our Tulsa is we've got to redo the sewer. It's a lagoon sanitary sewer system that serves Smith and Savage. So I hate spending money on stuff like that because it's not fun. It's like, there's no colorful
necessary stuff.
But you got to do it. So that will be a pretty big investment out in those facilities.
That's all right. We can stretch that sewer service. That's something that needs done in East Tulsa too. Some of those things need to be stretched out that way too.
Yeah.
That's why the 7 developers along 3rd they're coming together to help stretch that infrastructure that way as well. So that's part of that process too.
What's the timing on those? That's interesting to me, just to know that we'll get more houses out there, because it really might make the case to add some amenities out there that would be accessible more to community members, not just people who are playing softball.
They're working on their inter-agreements right now, because like I said, they are coming together to go, okay, we can put up this much, we can put up that much, and kind of coming together to stretch that infrastructure. But most of that zoning is done, so it's they're moving forward. So I would say within the next couple of years, we're gonna have projects starting to break ground.
Yeah, let's talk as that happens and just sort of identify, because I do think we've got
Yeah.
space at those two facilities to, like I said, you could add amenities and you could change. Right now, you can't get into the parking lot, for example,
Yeah,
you know,
'cause
but
it's
you
gated
could
most
move
of the
that
time.
gate back and create some amenities that would be
A little more
accessible all the
parking.
time.
A little more parking.
So anyway, I think
Yep.
there's some things like that there might be some opportunity
I agree.
to add, you know, or you could do trails, or you could do some other things like that as well that would be community assets.
Yeah. Me and you recently spoke about working on a process for renaming parks and working on developing one so that we can move forward with some better park names. Obviously, in my area, we have a lot of them that are just kind of named like East Park Track.
Right, it's literally what was like on the legal document. Okay,
Exactly.
here's this park. It's,
Yeah,
I
when
mean,
it
I'm
was-
amazed we don't have like Lot 42, you know,
I know.
as park names in some of these.
I am too, because the one that directly backs my area, it's literally, I mean, it's mostly creek, but there's enough green space there that it's served as some stormwater retention and a park, but it's literally East Park Tract, and it's just awful. You know that was just part of the development plan and the donation to the city, and I'm like, seriously, you know, I
right.
mentioned Mallard Park maybe because
Yeah,
we
yeah, I
have
think you can-
we've had a whole resident flock that has lived there for at least 20 years since I moved in. So, you know, I thought that would be so much better than East Park Tract.
Just people get emotional about their parks, and
yeah.
so it's nice to have something that is meaningful. You know, I mean, my son is named after the park, Braden Park. So my son was named Braden because that's where and I love
Yeah.
that park, and
Yeah.
you know, so you get that connection to the park, and when the park name is meaningful, that's cool too.
But we want
So-
to avoid names. I mean, we've talked about that. We want to try to avoid
Yeah,
names
yeah.
unless, I mean, I know we've got
We wanna be
Patrick
thoughtful
Park,
about
and you know,
it, and-
that's as a
Yeah.
counselor, that was part of that. But you know, I mean, there are some
There's
special
probably
things.
a rule. You know, once you have 3 counselors from the same family,
I know.
you get a park name. We'll go ahead and go with that.
I know.
But we just, did you know, we just renamed what had been Centennial Park, renamed
Yep.
Veterans Park, and
Yep.
we'll be doing a ceremony next month rededicating what had been Veterans Park as Dreamkeepers Park. But it was really moving to see at the Veterans Park ceremony
Yeah.
how much that meant to people.
Yeah.
And all these people,
Well,
all
and
these
easier
veterans,
access because the veterans didn't have a lot of easy access to the
yeah, because
to
it was
that
out in that
park.
median,
It
so
was-
anybody with
yeah.
limited mobility, you know,
Yeah,
yeah,
this
it
is
was,
gonna
there were a
be
lot
much,
of things
much
that
better.
were poorly
Parking and
designed
easy
about
access.
it. But to know, I mean, that sign, all these people, I saw dozens of veterans from all different parts of town getting their picture taken with the sign when we did the unveiling. We did it on the 9/11 anniversary
Yeah.
as part of that ceremony. And it really means a lot.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a good reminder to me that that kind of thing
Yeah.
isn't just something on a piece of paper to a lot of people. It
No.
becomes meaningful. They really identified, they name their kids after it, you know, but there's probably no.
They take ownership of it.
There's no
you know,
East,
yeah.
East Tulsa track
I know.
kids born in your neighborhood,
I
but
know.
I don't know, maybe Mallard, that wouldn't be a bad name,
Mallard,
actually.
I
You
mean,
could name
like
a
I
kid
said,
Mallard.
and all of the ducks that are there are mallards. We did have a white one that was there for a while, but it has moved on. We occasionally have geese that fly in. We had about 3 dozen
I'm not a
geese.
big geese fan.
No, and they don't stay.
No, you're
think
lucky. I mean,
you know,
they're
they
a huge
fly in and then
problem
they
in-
leave, so they'll be there for a
Yeah.
day or an afternoon, and then they pop out, and you know, so they're not the residents.
So
it's the ducks.
you don't have a bunch of people feeding the geese. Then try to keep that, because that's where we have a huge problem with geese
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of these ponds, and they used to be migratory, and they're not anymore. The Canada
Yeah.
geese, and they've taken over so many of these ponds. They can be aggressive. They
Mm-hmm.
will depending on the pond and how it's set up. But I mean,
Yeah.
they'll get rid of all that vegetation. They kind of squeeze
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
out the. I don't know if the
We have
mallards are
one
native,
in-
but the
yeah.
ducks and things that have lived
Yeah.
there for a long time that aren't as destructive. And then, there's probably a nicer way to describe the fact that it becomes completely surrounded with goose poop, and you can't walk around some of these. So it's a real challenge. It's a challenge all across the country. It's like
Yeah, they have.
these geese are holding us hostage in a lot of places. So.
We have one neighbor that does feed the ducks, and they have set feeding times, and they know when to come up. And fortunately, the geese don't always make it, they don't make it in time. The ducks clean it up and go back to the creek, and so
good for them,
she doesn't
so.
overfeed them, and they come up and gobble theirs and then go, and so it works out very nicely. She supplements them, but yeah. I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, that would really pay homage to them. They've been here longer than a lot of the residents have. So, and I think
less trouble.
less trouble than some of the residents that come and go. I mean, obviously, older neighborhoods, they transition from mainly owner occupied to rental. So you have that coming and going. So yeah, the Geese have been there longer than a lot of the residents have. But I did remember the other thing. One of the things that we had talked about also in the future as parks develop out is a rodeo area. We have one that is out at Mohawk, and I know it needs some work to get it back up and running, but that's another thing that's very popular in East Tulsa. We have a lot of horse owners. We have a lot of people that like to rodeo, and unfortunately, Tulsa currently does not have a rodeo facility to accommodate those needs. And I know that that's something we've talked about, is getting that rodeo arena back up and functional, and additional parking for that area, whether it be grass parking or whatever, but to really bring that into usefulness again, because it hasn't been. It was kind of forgotten and tucked away.
Yeah. I've been surprised. I didn't realize, I think I underestimated how much, horse interest there is in general. So whether rodeo, the equestrian trails, polo, I mean, is still very active and holds events out at Mohawk. So
we have horseback riders that go even to Turkey Mountain.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity to create spaces that people enjoy. So that's fun. I forget what tribal grounds is most of your district. Are you Cherokee Nation or
Cherokee Creek? I mean, I think most of mine is. I think it's Cherokee out there for most of it, and I'm not sure where the creek boundary is, but I know I'm close to boundaries there.
We've been talking to tribes on some of the different projects and partnering and things, and because Mohawk is in Cherokee Nation,
that might be a good project for them as
well.
well.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some interest in I think for a variety of reasons, but there are some cultural, obviously, and historical sort of elements that are
and the Hispanic,
kind of tied to the
Latinx community too. Their culture involves a lot of horsemanship and horseback riding, and we have horses that get ridden down 129th Street. So yeah.
I think that's something that I hope that we're all trying to do better as a community. I mean, we're trying to do better as parks, and to not just sort of say, what's a cliched thing that we think somebody from a country or somebody like, but to recognize that there are things like that I think would never have occurred to me, and to really sort of kind of engage more with the community, to have people say, hey, this is a thing that.
Yeah, and that was it. I've had people from those communities go, we really need a rodeo ground, because right now they're having to go out to outer communities and rent areas. There's an arena, river something out, River Bend Arena, I think, out near Inola. And they rent places like that to have their rodeos and their events, and it's they even incorporate oftentimes a concert at the same time. So they'll have a concert, and the first time I went out there, I'm like, it just baffled me that the horses, because I've ridden horses that would have been just completely spooked by the concert going on at the same time, but they had been out there enough that it was working for them, because they had the concert on one end and the rodeo on the other end, and I'm like, it was just pretty remarkable to see it all work.
Fun. And I think rodeo horses can't be too spookable.
I know.
They got a lot going on.
I mean, I had one freak out when I was trying out for Creek County Queen years ago that was not used to the indoor arena, and it was pretty wigged out just because it was in an indoor arena. So I mean, it was working for them. So we definitely
we'd love to, if anybody's watching here wants to partner on any of this,
absolutely.
We've got those facilities out at Mohawk that haven't been used in a long time, and so we've been talking to a lot of different people potentially, but nothing that's really developed so far.
And we're not opposed to temporarily naming, and those sponsorships those are definitely on the table. So if we have groups that are willing to do that, much like they do at the county, where the Expo Square changes names as those sponsorships become available and things are renegotiated, we absolutely have those. We're talking about it with the golf courses as well, and those sponsoring opportunities with that as well, to help take some of the maintenance burden off and help facilitate and supplement our budget to maintain the things that our communities want and our citizens want. And anytime we can have partnerships like that, it helps.
I think like many people, I always say the BOK.
Yeah.
Meaning, you know, our arena,
Yeah.
which is on a limited time, I mean, they hopefully will renew that,
Yeah.
and it'll always be the
Yeah.
BOK, just
But
because
it may
it'll be
not
easier for
always
us.
be the BOK.
Right, exactly. So, but
Yeah.
that's, those naming rights to that arena, and obviously that becomes so identified with it that I've never
I
heard a
know.
single person say the arena or whatever
Yeah.
else you might call it if you didn't just
Yeah.
say the BOK.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know, and that's true. And in the future, that may change if they decide that.
Yeah, you see that with like
When-
big, you know,
I
big
know.
sports stadiums and stuff all the time, you know, it's become something
So,
new.
but
So
yeah,
anyway.
definitely
you
an
know,
option to help our parks departments and our golf courses and things, so
Yeah.
that, you know, as people are, you know, I mean, we have plenty of philanthropic engagement, so those are always options, and we're always
Sure,
willing to
sure.
discuss those options. So
Yeah.
definitely something that may
I'm all
work
about
for us in the
leveraging,
future.
yeah, anything
absolutely.
we can do to get a little bit more, squeeze a little bit more out of the taxpayers' dollars, you know, I mean, we know we're underfunded and to keep up with things, so when we have that private support willing to step in, we love to try to find a way to make use of it, and volunteers, that has really kicked up. I don't know if that's a COVID thing or if it's just that, you know, people have had more experience, but I would say over the past couple of years, we really have gotten a lot more really solid volunteer groups that are helping us
Yeah.
clean parks, and in some cases do even more extensive work. I mean, clear out brush and things, and
And is
it's been
that
nice.
something that we've talked about, like adopt a park? I mean, you know, we've got adopt a highways or adopt a roads. Have we discussed adopt a parks?
We've had those in the past, and I would say those specific things don't work quite as well, or especially if you put up a sign. I mean, we got a couple of those. They called it My Backyard, and none of those groups are still even around. But we have groups that sort of do adopt a park, but maybe they don't. I'm shying away from like, oh, we're putting up a sign and you've adopted, because a lot of times people get the sign up and then we never see them again.
Yeah.
And when people really want to make a difference, I'll just like Church on the Move, which
Yeah.
is, you know, located out east. They've been a huge volunteer. They come out they do volunteer work throughout the year, but particularly on Love Day. I mean, they do work that in some cases would take us months to catch up with. They've done massive cleanups out at Mohawk and a lot of
Fantastic.
trail projects and things. But we've got
That's
a
my
lot of
church.
it. Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I go-
yeah.
I go to Church on the Move.
I brag on them all the time
Yeah.
because they just have made a
They're
real
just a
difference.
force. They're a force.
Well, and they're awesome because they'll come out. They bring tools. They brought
Yeah.
when they came out and helped us after the flood at Mohawk, and they brought dumpsters and forklifts and all kinds of stuff. So, but there's a lot of smaller groups too. We have a small group now that is working with people with some disabilities that, and they love it. And so they have smaller groups because they really want to
Yeah.
work not as part of a large group, as part of the issue that they're dealing with. But we recognize on day of caring,
Yep.
we have people in some of the parks where I normally have problems. I had my staff saying, oh, check this park, this park, this park, to see where we could send some groups for day
Yep.
of caring. And those parks didn't need a group, which is like
Yeah.
the best news ever. That
Yeah.
we've gotten some volunteer groups that have stepped up and have really helped us, you know, keep trash picked up and
Great.
things. So yeah, it's been really nice to see that community coming together to support parks that way.
All right. Well, I think we've covered just about everything.
Okay.
It was so nice to have you,
Yeah.
and I think this format worked really well, so maybe in the future we can add some additional things.
Sure.
And this could be available for a while on our social media so that people can go back and look at it. I think we're going to put it not only on my District 6 Digest Facebook page, but I think it will probably end up also on the City Council Facebook page, so it's
Okay.
a good update.
Thank you.
Thank